Okay, we've been talking about various ways to diagnose misfires. Maybe some of you guys have seen in the industry that some people are, for example, taking lab scope and going out to the O2 sensor and looking at the abnormal O2 sensor waveform. Now remember, what typically happens when we have any type of a misfire is the fact that we didn't burn the oxygen as well as the fuel. Remember, the only thing that the O2 sensor can sense is O2 molecules. So if you look at the lab scope screen right now, you'll notice that the O2 sensor, just about every 4 or 5 puffs, it dips lean and low for a prolonged period of time because this engine has a misfire type symptom. Now, obviously you know that when you look at this O2 sensor, yeah, the O2 sensor waveform again dipped lean and low for a prolonged period of time, indicating that we must have had some kind of abnormal combustion process, in other words, a misfire. My question to you is, does the O2 sensor waveform pinpoint any specific cylinder? Well, it could if we brought a number 1 trigger in. You have to understand that to adequately look at the O2 sensor, we actually went to 1 second or 2 seconds per division here at idle where this misfire is occurring. If I go in and bring dual trace in and look at secondary on a 2 second per division, or maybe trigger off the injector, whether it's voltage or current waveform, the time base is way too slow for us to get a proper consecutive stable trigger signal. So what we've been talking about is that when we have misfire symptoms, we go right directly to the source. So what we're going to do is, instead of showing you the O2 sensor waveform here, we're going to bring in the secondary KV probe and go right to the plug wires and see if we can look at the spark line on the bad cylinder and pick it out that way. So let's go right to the source with the secondary KV probe. Okay, what I've done on this misfire symptom, to give you an idea, we were talking about signal tracing the O2 sensor to verify or pinpoint a misfire cause, but if you look at the scope screen right now on a 2 second per division time base on the screen, which is a total of 20 seconds obviously, you can see a couple of low dip outs of the O2 sensor waveform. Basically here again, what we talked about before, it verifies that we did in fact have a misfire. Well, we can feel that to the seat of our pants. The question is, what caused the misfire? It goes back to what we've been talking about, effectively speaking, the 10-minute scope check. So now let's take the secondary KV probe, go right to the plug wires and see if the secondary spark line will show us the offending cylinder. Okay, misfire symptom, here again, secondary KV quick check. Let's go right after the secondary leads, 1 plug wire at a time. Here's number 1 cylinder. Let's take a look at the spark line. You can see about 1.2, 1.3, good spark line. Let's move on. There's number 4 cylinder spark line. Notice about 1.2, 1.3 millisecond good spark duration. This happens to be number 2. No particular order. Good spark line characteristics. There's number 3, again about 1.3 millisecond burn time. Good spark line characteristics. There's number 6 cylinder, again about 1.2, 1.3. Now we've done 5 out of 6. Let's go to number 5 cylinder. And there's your odd man out. Take a look at the long spark duration period. Now, obviously you know that could be caused by an extremely rich cylinder, low compression, or a grounded plug wire, or maybe a fouled out spark plug. We snap the throttle in this vehicle. If it's in fact a compression problem and we don't see any increase in turbulence, we know the problem must be inside a combustion chamber. Let's snap the throttle, view the spark line as we snap the throttle. You can see that there was no increase in turbulence. We know there's something is wrong inside that combustion chamber. Let's pull the spark plug and take a good look at it. Hopefully we convinced you of the diagnostic value of the secondary quick check. Remember, it's a 10-minute quick check. So the diagnostic information that we try to cover for you is, in my opinion, looking at secondary waveform is absolutely phenomenal. Now, with that in mind, let's talk about maybe some kind of marketing strategy with your scope. Typically, I can only share with you what I do at my shop. Most technicians will only drag out a scope if there is a misfire symptom. And I'm going to give you a couple examples where that should not only be the case. If we have a vehicle that comes into our shop with 40,000 miles or more on the odometer, and it has any type of engine performance problem, and it has a mill light on for maybe a simple emission code, we're going to spend the 10 minutes and scope check the car. Now, I really don't want to talk about prices here, but what we typically do at my shop, it's a 10-minute scope check. It's a $24 to $28.50 scope check. Now, with that in mind, this is what we call the marketing strategy of your scope. In other words, because of the substantial investment you have in your scope, you need to use that religiously. In other words, you know, let's just say you did 4 or 5 scope checks a week. At $28.50, you can see that you're going to generate revenue off your scope. So that's the first promise I'm going to make you, is that you're going to generate revenue from that scope. The second promise I'm going to make you is you're going to find problems in these vehicles, which I'll demonstrate here in a minute, that you would have never been able to detect unless you drug that scope out. Now, let me give you an example. We had a 1995 J body come in with a surging problem. I took my scan tool, I drive the car down the road, and I'm going down to 91 on my short-term fuel trim, meaning that the computer's taking fuel away. We got a rich condition causing the surging, jerking, bucking symptom. Well, we found out on that vehicle that we had a loaded canister. All I did is I pinched off the purge hose, jumped back in the car, drove the car with the evap disabled, and a symptom went away. Well, I called my customer and I told my customer, you've got a bad canister, it's loaded with fuel, we need to change the canister. He gave me the go-ahead. That vehicle had 67,000 miles on it. After I fixed the canister problem, I took that 10 minutes and did that secondary quick check. Let's take a look at this waveform, okay? Canister is fixed, drivability problem's been solved, but I want to go ahead and do my 10-minute scope check. I'm showing you number 4 here. Basically, this is a 4-cylinder 2.2 in a J body, and again, I'm just showing you number 4. Let's take a look at the kV demand. If you look at the foreign kV demand at 2 kV per division, you can see it's way high. In fact, it's off the screen. It's in excess of 16 kV, excess of 16,000 volts, way too high. Let's go down the spark line. Because the kV demand was so high to fire that spark plug, and by the way, the other 3 cylinders were very similar, notice the spark duration period is about 0.8 to 0.9 millisecond. Again, too short. This vehicle's captured at idle. Now, because I've already got the canister problem fixed, I go to the scope, I do my quick scope check, I call the customer and says, I got your vehicle fixed, but I want to warn you that your kV demand on your secondary circuit is way too high. Customer asks me, what does he need? He needs 4 spark plugs. Well, let me give an example. Now, obviously this is very low tech, but if you take a look at the next page in your manual, with the new spark plugs, you can see my kV demand is somewhere around 8 to 10 where it should be, and look at my 1.2 good millisecond spark duration. Food for thought here. Suppose you just fixed the canister problem. You didn't take the time and do the 10-minute quick check. Customer picks a vehicle up. 2 weeks later, it now starts misfiring because at real high 16, 18 kV demand, the coils finally give up, secondary insulation gives up. Now the customer has a misfire symptom, and knowing customers, he may blame you, the canister job you did, which he may want to blame you for the secondary misfires. So, you know, the rule of thumb at my shop, 40K or above, any type of drivability problem or emission DTC, we're going to take the 10-minute and do the scope check. It's my marketing plan to generate the revenue for my scope and to find out if there's anything wrong in that engine before it leaves my bay. Well guys, this concludes the training video on the profitable guide to DSO diagnostics. Hopefully we convinced you of the diagnostic value of the 10-minute scope check. Hopefully we had your attention, and as the old saying goes, attention is the active partner of intention. So now with this good diagnostic information, hopefully you will religiously scope these vehicles out and you'll be able to pinpoint those problems that have not yet matured. Let me say to you, thanks for having us. God bless you guys. Hope to see you next time.